All right, I want to talk about the perfect focus tree. So this is going to be educational for upcoming modders, as well as maybe a little bit good input for PDX for upcoming national focus trees. I want you guys to name a focus tree that you particularly hate or particularly love. Okay, someone said in the chat, Turkey, and they said the reason why they don't like it is it's too long. I agree. So let's have a look at the Turkish focus tree, and here we go. So initially, the community gets a mad boner for big focus trees, and there's no doubt about it. Turkey's focus tree is huge. It is a big boy. However, when you narrow down and eliminate all the alternative paths, the focus tree has two problems. One, it's nowhere near as big as we initially thought. And two, it's surprisingly linear. Now, what do I mean by linear? When you go down a political path, you don't have a lot of freedom of what the next focus is going to be. You have to basically stick to the path. So in this case, if you go down, continue the elitism, revive revolutionaryism, and then you go down the path of the communist path. Surprisingly, actually, the one for Turkey, because when you get to this point, you've got kind of a choice, haven't you? Because you can kind of go for reconfigure the foreign policy, or you can go for continue Balkan integration. But this path is rubbish. Just it's a dead end. Now, technically, you really only have one path, actually. You only really have one path. So you basically select your main ideology, which is up here. Then you have to reconfigure your Turkish foreign policy, and then basically see who you side with to finally get down to the very good part of the focus tree, the conquest part, and the forming the Empire of Turan. So for instance, let's just say if we were going to go down the path of bringing back the Ottoman Empire, you do the Monroe Convention, you go down the left path here, and then you go down the left path here. See, as you can see, you don't have a lot of decisions about what focuses you go for. For the most part, they're all political. Some of them have industry built within them, but you have to follow like a straight, narrow path. It's basically a railway line. You can't jump off. A train can't decide, oh, I want to go left, but there's no railway line. You can't go there. It's not possible. Now, the other options is you have got these smaller focus tree up here, which is kind of an afterthought, really. So it gives you a little bit of Navy, a little bit of Air Force, and a little bit of Army. It's just basically fixing the issues with Turkey. So I don't really see this as a legitimate alternative choice. At the end of the day, most of the time when you're playing HOI4, you start the game by focusing on your political path, and you also focus on your industry to begin with, because they're the most ones that give you the biggest bonus long game, you know? Point being, this big focus tree looks big, but when you narrow down the paths you go down, it becomes significantly smaller. The overall truth is this focus tree doesn't have a lot of decisions within it. For the most part, when you pick the ideology, it's pretty much linear, either ending up here with the Balkan thing, which just ends abruptly, or the Ottoman thing here, or the Turan. There's basically 3 destinations and 3 ideologies. I guess 4 if you include the Ottomans, I suppose. This big focus tree isn't as good as you think because it has limited choices. So the truth is it's not really any bigger than the old style focus trees, such as Italy. Oh my goodness, it's so small in comparison. But with this focus tree, you have kind of more decisions you can make. Basically, all these on the left here, all these ones you can pick. The only real choice here is claims on Yugoslavia and befriend Yugoslavia, and then Pact of Steel or Italian first. They're the only real choices that make a decision of what paths you can go down and which ones you can go down. Anyway, point being, big is not always better for 2 reasons. 1, 35-day focuses tend to clutter the focus tree. And 2, if it looks big, but it limits 2/3 of the focus tree if you go down one path, especially it's not really that necessarily that bigger. So in all fairness, this might make you guys big mad, but I don't think the Turkish focus tree is much different from the old style focus trees like Italy's got, for instance. Coming to my next point, 35-day focuses. I know the community loves them. But you know the problem with them is they don't really add a great deal to a focus tree. They just tend to make it bigger for the sake of making it bigger. The Soviet focus tree has lots of options, so credit to PDX here. There's a lot of cool, interesting paths you can go down and different choices you can make for the Soviet Union. Trust me, it really opens up depending on what path you go down. However, there are a lot of 35-day focuses here that kind of don't go very in depth. So 35, 35, 70, 70, 70, 35, 35, 35, 35. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy that these exist and you've got the freedom to do them and you can do them a lot quicker. And don't get me wrong. When I press a focus that is 35 days, it's kind of really nice to see a focus finish in 35 days and hop onto another one. But the problem sometimes is some of the bonuses you get down some of these paths aren't that really that great. And they're just like a stalling mechanism to get to the next focus. It kind of makes the focus tree larger, but doesn't necessarily add that much detail or texture to the actual overall focus tree. The more I've played with the Soviet focus tree, by the way, the more I've actually started to love it. I need to really try the Trotsky path and the right opposition path because I've not done that yet and I need to give it a go. So another example of a linear path is the Manchuco focus tree. So you've got the big focus tree on the right here, which is like the main girth and meat of the Chinese focus trees, which is basically just getting foreign aid, blah, blah, blah. You've kind of got to build relationships as you go down, which always feels like a really strange roadblock. You need to build relations for a nation. I can understand if France doesn't exist, you can't go down this path, but having to get 75 relations with the UK or USA, and it really slows you down. Before you get to the meat of the focus tree, which is basically about forming a unified China, which is such a cool idea at the bottom, but shame it just comes so unbelievably late. But for instance, if you go down here and go down assertiveness, you got the option of claim the mandate of heaven, which is such a cool path. But once again, it's very linear again. I feel like the focus trees that narrow down like your choices into specific paths. I say Yugoslavia is a really good focus tree in my opinion, because you've got like army stuff here, you've got navy stuff here, you've got air stuff here, you've got industry here, you've got your political ideology stuff here. I feel like it's very neat. You can see the decisions, they're very clear to you. So you've got ideology, industry, air force, army, navy. Everything's very crystal clear, and every bonus you get is really worthwhile. The stuff you get from each of these is really worth your while. Like 3 civies is amazing, you know, and you got research slots, you've got loads of infrastructure. How bad would this be if this focus was divided into 2 focuses, both 35-day ones, but they gave you half the infrastructure for one and half the other? I don't know, to me, it just feel like it's extra clutter to a focus tree. It wouldn't necessarily enhance the overall experience. I think the best way of making a focus tree is it needs to be like a runway. So imagine a plane, okay? You're taking off, all right? You're gaining speed, you're gaining momentum, and then you finally take off and you're in the air, okay? When you're in the air, I feel like you should gain the biggest bonus. Now imagine this focus tree like a runway. So you start here. This is your initial focus. To be honest with you, times 2 100% industry boost is pretty sweet. So it's not exactly the best example of something gaining momentum, is it? But as you come down the focus tree and you make more and more progress, plane is gaining momentum, it's gaining speed. So therefore, when you get to the very end, it's a very satisfying feeling when you get the final focus. Now that final focus is a bit crap in my honest opinion. 1 civvy and 2 military factories. It should feel like a big reward to finish a focus tree and to get all the way to the bottom. It should feel like there's a big payoff. But when you get a reward like that, and it's like, it's not that great. But then you've got a reward like 5% consumer goods. That's actually pretty decent. And this one too, extra 10% efficiency cap and efficiency growth. These are actually really good focuses, but they're like 2 focuses in. They could be geared up in a way where I feel like focuses should have momentum and then pay off. And it always felt a bit silly to me that like some of these focuses at the bottom here, like reduce the cost for licenses for ARM. I'm like, geez, who's going to do that? Or airborne technology times 1, 300%. And like, for instance, this one's as well, which reduces artillery by 5%, the cost. But I mean, if I've got all the way down to here at this point, I suppose I'm so late game, I suppose. Will it even matter? I guess you have to rush this to get cheaper artillery. Who uses licenses? Nobody uses licenses. They're really rubbish. One of the reasons why licenses are really used, by the way, is because the AI generally doesn't accept them. To get the AI to ever agree to a license is incredibly difficult. And then having an actual license, when you suffer from a big production penalty, is not really worth it either. And then the research bonus you get from having the license isn't really that good either. So I feel like everything's stacked against licenses. Like licenses is just a really bad idea. So here's 2 theories, okay? You initially give someone a big payoff, then maybe some focuses a filler to have a final one at the bottom that has a decent focus that gives you a good payoff. So it's kind of like a going really fast and slows down a bit, a little bit of trickle, and then a big payoff at the very end. Alternatively, you can have a very slow momentum. The first focuses don't really give you a great deal. But then as you get further and further down, they get spicier and spicier and spicy until they give you a big payoff at the very end. And it feels so deserving and so worth it. And it feels really like you really worked hard for something and you get a really good payoff from it. I'll be real, there aren't that many of those that do that. I'm trying to even find a single example of a bottom of a focus tree that gives you something amazing. Can't even think of a single one, to be honest with you. I suppose in a way, this works quite well with Czechoslovakia when you get united population at the very end, giving you stability and giving you manpower back. You spent time building a connections between the Slovak people and the Czechs to finally pay off and unify them at the very end. I feel like it feels good. I guess there's a little bit of role play baked in between that as well, because you're fixing the ills of your nation as well. Bulgaria, of the 3 seas, adds 2 naval dockyards for any state with a naval dockyard already built along the coast of the Aegean, Adriatic, and the Black Sea. This is an amazing payoff. However, you're basically getting in 1940 to 1941, or even later, a load of naval dockyards. Naval dockyards that you need to build ships that take 5 years to build. So what do you do with that? I don't know. I've heard pressure of the Balkans is really good too. It gives you lots of green stuff. Once again, population is okay. XP is okay. Recovery is okay. Oh, there's a lot. Oh, justification minus 50%. That's really good. This is a really good big payoff one as well. Nuclear research for Bulgaria. I think I'm against 35-day focuses because they tend to make focus trees larger, but not necessarily more in depth. It's more buttons for the sake of more buttons, where it doesn't really necessarily add more content. Another example is a Spanish focus tree as well. Oh god, this is a really good example. This is exactly like the Turkish focus tree. Once you pick a path, 2/3, even more than that, 90% of focuses just become null and void. It feels like, oh wow, massive focus tree, so much detail. But then when you actually get down to it, you go, Great Spain, supremacy of the communion. So I suppose now I need to talk about focus trees that have done really well, I guess. I guess I really love the Death of Dishonor ones because I feel like you've got lots of choices, lots of options for conquest, and a lot of things are kind of simplified to make them kind of more straightforward. Like for instance, Hungary as well is really good too because you've got that Austria-Hungary path, you've got the divided industry, political paths. I guess it's not overly convoluted. I'm not necessarily asking for something to be simpler, by the way. I'm just asking for something to kind of make the bonuses clearer, less likely to make 90% of the focuses null and void. Except for the communist path of Hungary. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that one day just for a laugh, just for giggles. This Hungary focus tree just comes to an abrupt end. 5% recruitable population for Hungary? That's really high. These ones are awful. 70 days just to create a faction is so bad. I really love the Greek one too. The Greek one is really good. Greek starts with a lot of problems, but once again, if you can look at the focus tree here, you can actually see each individual path of what it does. So you've got your political paths on the left and right here. Then you've got basically fixing the issues industrial-wise of Greeks, and they've got a lot of those. And then you've got the armed force, the navy, and the army. They're nicely divided as well. Man, the Greek focus tree is really good, actually. The Greek one is really good. It gets to the point. South Africa. Man, it's so long since I've checked these focuses. Commit to the 5-year plan. Seaward defense. Oh my god, these are so basic. You've only really got two choices with this. You've got like stick with Britain and stick with whatever ideology, or divide off and go fascist, communist. That's basically it. And then you've got industry, armed forces. Yeah, I feel like this was the old style of focus trees for HOI4. These kind of like divide it up into 5 categories, pick the 5 categories. But now it's gone down the path of like, you've got a linear path now, and 90% of focuses don't even apply anymore. I guess another pattern of focus trees is that it should feel like you're losing a lot to fix the ills of your nation. Maybe you're losing stability, you're losing manpower, you're losing army, you're losing production. Therefore, to have a build-up later on where you fix all the issues of your nation, then you boom and you explode and you have an economic miracle. That would be really cool as well, like an actual build-up. I hope that gives a better insight on how I think focus trees should be designed. I feel like the open-ended choice style focus trees are better than the ones that are kind of linear. And I feel like Death and Dishonor was the peak of focus trees for HOI4. And ever since then, we've kind of gone downhill with a few sparkles of brilliance, like, for instance, Greece. And the Soviet Union's okay to a certain degree as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you. I love you. You think this video was good? Well, this one is the final form. Click it.